"This lounge doesn't serve economy passengers. You're at the wrong door." Anna stood still. The humiliation struck like an invisible slap in the marble-tiled waiting hall where crystal lights shimmered faintly against her simple white blazer. Across the counter, lounge manager Karen Matthews didn't bother hiding her contempt. The fake smile vanished as quickly as it came, like Anna's presence had stained the polished world she presided over. Anna reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek brown leather ID wallet, offering it with a firm, deliberate motion. But before it could even reach Karen's hand, it was dropped like trash, sliding across the floor at a stranger's feet. "I have a reservation," Anna said, her voice calm. Karen lowered her gaze, a smug smirk tugging at the corner of her lips. "Everyone thinks they belong here these days." Silence spread, heads turned, some looked away, others raised their phones, already recording. Anna bent down to pick up the ID. Her eyes were sharp, cold like a blade, but she said nothing, and within seconds she made the entire lounge freeze. Can you guess how? Anna reaches into her purse, pulling out her identification card with steady hands. "I have a reservation," she says quietly, extending the ID toward Karen. But instead of taking it properly, Karen's fingers barely brush the plastic before she lets it fall. The ID hits the floor with a sharp crack, skidding across the tiles like a discarded piece of trash. Anna's breath catches in her throat, her eyes following the path of her identity as it comes to rest near a stranger's shoe. Marcus's grip tightens on his phone, making sure he's capturing every moment of this interaction. The silence in the lounge stretches, thick and suffocating. "You don't belong here," Karen says, her sneer revealing something ugly beneath her professional veneer. Anna's face tightens, her jaw clenching as she fights back a wave of raw, choked-back fury that threatens to consume her composure. Marcus continues filming, his heart racing as he watches the same woman who gave speeches about treating every customer with dignity display the exact opposite behavior. The trembling in Anna's hands betrays the storm raging beneath her calm exterior. She bends down slowly, her movements deliberate despite the humiliation burning in her chest. As her fingers close around the ID, a fleeting memory surfaces. Sitting in a corporate boardroom years ago, watching her ideas dismissed with the same casual cruelty. Her eyes well briefly, just for a moment, before she straightens and meets Karen's gaze. The briefcase in her other hand contains more than just papers. It holds the future of a $4,300,000,000 0-cents clean energy deal designed to bring jobs and hope to underserved communities across the nation. Anna has spent months negotiating this contract, pouring her heart into every detail, knowing that her success could lift thousands from poverty. But now, standing in this sterile lounge with her ID still warm from the floor, she feels the familiar sting of being reduced to nothing more than her appearance. The lump in her throat grows heavier as she realizes how much this moment could cost not just her, but everyone counting on her to make it to Washington, D.C. Marcus zooms in slightly, making sure to capture Karen's Diversity Champion Award in the background of his recording, the cruel irony not lost on him. Anna walks deeper into the lounge, her steps measured and purposeful, despite the chaos swirling in her mind. The VIP area sprawls before her like a sanctuary for the privileged, all leather chairs and marble countertops, floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the runway where private jets taxi in the distance. She clutches her briefcase tighter, knowing that inside those documents lies her life's work. A comprehensive plan to install solar panels and wind turbines in communities that have been forgotten by progress. The Clean Energy Initiative represents more than just business. It's her grandmother's voice, echoing through time, urging her to lift others as she climbs. Karen Matthews adjusts her perfectly pressed blazer. Her movements sharp with an authority she's cultivated over 15 years in airport management. The same woman who just last month hosted a cultural sensitivity workshop for junior staff now prides herself on maintaining the lounge's exclusive atmosphere, believing that her years of service have earned her the right to decide who belongs and who. When she looks at Anna, she doesn't see a CEO or a change maker. She sees a threat to the order she's worked so hard to maintain. The way Anna carries herself, with that quiet confidence that can't be manufactured, makes Karen's stomach twist with resentment. The other staff members watch the interaction with uncomfortable awareness, their loyalty to Karen battling against their instinct that something isn't right about this situation. Marcus continues filming discreetly, his phone positioned behind his computer monitor. He recognizes something in Anna's posture that reminds him of his own mother's dignity in the face of dismissal, but he also knows that challenging Karen directly could cost him his job. Near the bar, a white businessman in an expensive suit receives immediate attention from the waitstaff, his every need anticipated before he can voice it. When he snaps his fingers, 3 employees rush to his table. When Anna approaches the same bar area, the bartender suddenly becomes very interested in wiping down glasses that are already clean. The contrast is stark and deliberate, a choreographed dance of preference that everyone notices, but no one acknowledges. Anna waits patiently, her internal clock ticking with the awareness that her flight to D.C. boards in 2 hours. The deal depends on her being in that conference room tomorrow morning, where senators and energy executives will decide the fate of her proposal. She's spent years building the relationships and trust necessary to get this far, and she won't let anyone's prejudice destroy what she's worked so hard to create. Karen mutters under her breath to another employee, her words carefully chosen to wound without crossing obvious lines. "These diversity hires think they can just walk in anywhere these days," she says, her voice just loud enough for Anna to hear. The comment hits its mark, causing Anna's shoulders to tense slightly, but she doesn't turn around. Marcus's jaw clenches as he continues recording, the same woman who lectured him about unconscious bias, now displaying the most conscious bias imaginable. Instead, Anna continues to wait, her breathing steady despite the fire building in her chest. A flashback surfaces unbidden. Anna, at 12 years old, sitting in her grandmother's kitchen as the older woman bandaged her scraped knees after she'd been pushed off her bike by older kids who didn't think she belonged in their neighborhood. "Baby girl," her grandmother had said, her voice gentle but firm. "They can knock you down, but they can't keep you down unless you let them. You remember that?" The memory strengthens Anna's resolve, even as tears threaten to blur her vision. She thinks about all the communities waiting for this deal, all the families who could benefit from the jobs it would create, all the children who deserve a cleaner future. The weight of their hopes settles on her shoulders like a mantle of responsibility. She pulls out her phone and types a quick message to her assistant. "Delayed at airport. Keep Senator Williams informed about timing." Her fingers shake slightly as she sends the text, but her face remains composed. Anna finally approaches the check-in counter, her documents organized in a neat folder that she places gently on the marble surface. "I need to confirm my flight to Washington, D.C., she says, her voice professional despite the emotional storm raging inside her. The 6:30 departure to Reagan National. Karen looks up from her computer screen with exaggerated surprise, as if she'd forgotten Anna was there. "Oh, you're still here?" she says, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "I'm sorry, but I'm having some technical difficulties with the system. It might be a while before I can process your request." The lie hangs in the air like smoke, visible to everyone but impossible to prove. Anna's chest tightens with the familiar sensation of being gaslit, of having her reality denied by someone who holds power over her immediate future. Behind his computer, Marcus continues recording, his phone capturing not just the interaction but also the Customer Service Excellence certificate hanging on the wall behind Karen, another award she received for supposedly exemplary service. "I understand systems can be difficult," Anna says, her voice steady despite the way her heart pounds against her ribs. "Perhaps you could try refreshing the page?" Karen's smile becomes more brittle, her composure cracking slightly at Anna's persistent politeness. She's used to people either backing down or losing their temper, but Anna's calm determination unnerves her. "I don't need you to tell me how to do my job." Karen snaps, her professional mask slipping for just a moment. "Maybe you should consider whether you actually have the right credentials to be in this lounge." The implication hits Anna like a physical blow, but she doesn't flinch. Instead, she reaches into her purse and pulls out her membership card, placing it next to her ID on the counter. "I've been a platinum member for 3 years," she says quietly. "My credentials are in order." Karen barely glances at the card before pushing it back toward Anna. "Well, anyone can get a fake membership these days," she says, her voice loud enough to draw attention from other patrons. "You'd be surprised how many people try to sneak in here with counterfeit documents." The accusation hangs in the air like poison, and Anna feels the familiar burn of injustice in her throat. Marcus zooms in on his phone, making sure to capture Karen's expression as she makes these baseless accusations. The same woman who has a photo on her desk from the anti-discrimination training workshop she supposedly completed with honors just 3 months ago. The confrontation escalates when Karen accidentally drops Anna's passport on the floor, the burgundy booklet hitting the marble with a sound that echoes through the lounge. "Oops," Karen says, her smile sharp with malice. "How clumsy of me." The passport slides across the floor, coming to rest near the foot of a stranger's chair. Anna's throat tightens with the weight of the moment, the symbolism of her identity being literally cast aside. She can feel the eyes of other patrons on her, some curious, others uncomfortable, a few openly hostile. But then something unexpected happens. The older black woman sitting in the corner, who has been quietly observing the entire interaction, suddenly stands up. "I've been watching this entire scene," she says, her voice carrying the authority of someone who has spent decades fighting injustice. "And I've recorded every word." She holds up her phone, revealing that she's been filming even longer than Marcus. "My name is Eleanor Washington," she continues, "and I'm a retired federal judge and civil rights attorney." The revelation sends a shockwave through the lounge. What I've witnessed here today is textbook discrimination, and I'm prepared to testify to that fact. Anna's eyes widen with surprise and gratitude. She hadn't noticed Eleanor recording, had no idea that someone of such stature was witnessing her humiliation. Karen's face goes white as the implications hit her. A federal judge recording her behavior, documenting her discriminatory actions. This is far worse than she could have imagined. Eleanor turns to Anna with a gentle smile. "I know who you are, dear," she says quietly. "I've been following your work in clean energy development. Your grandmother would be proud." Anna's eyes fill with tears at the mention of her grandmother, but she manages to maintain her composure. "Thank you," she whispers, her voice thick with emotion. The crowd murmurs with interest, phones still recording, the story already spreading across social media platforms. Marcus, still filming from behind his computer, realizes he's captured something historic. The same woman who has Inclusive Leadership and Diversity Champion awards prominently displayed in her office is being exposed by a federal judge for blatant discrimination. The irony is so thick it's almost suffocating. But Karen, desperate to maintain control, doubles down on her position. "I don't care who she says she is," she shouts, completely unaware that she's addressing a federal judge. "The rules are the rules, and I'm not going to be intimidated by some troublemaker and her lawyer friend." The crowd gasps at Karen's audacity, arguing with a federal judge while standing next to awards for exemplary customer service and diversity leadership. Anna's phone rings, the sound cutting through the tension like a knife. She looks at the caller ID and sees a number she recognizes. The governor's office. "Excuse me," she says to the crowd, her voice steady despite the emotional turmoil. "I need to take this call." She answers on the second ring. "This is Anna Harper." The voice on the other end is crisp and professional. "Ms. Harper, this is David Kim from Governor Martinez's office. We've been monitoring social media, and we're aware of the situation at the airport. The governor wanted me to reach out directly to ensure you're being treated appropriately." Anna's heart pounds as she realizes the implications. The story is already spreading, already reaching the highest levels of government. "I appreciate the governor's concern," she says, her voice carrying clearly through the silent lounge. "I'm currently experiencing what I can only describe as discriminatory treatment from airport staff, and it's threatening my ability to make it to Washington for tomorrow's committee meeting." Karen's face goes from white to green as she begins to understand the magnitude of what's happening. The woman she's been tormenting isn't just any passenger. She's someone with direct connections to the governor's office, someone whose delayed arrival in D.C. could have serious political and economic implications. And now, with a federal judge recording everything and awards for diversity leadership mocking her from the background, Karen realizes she's walked into a perfect storm of her own making. "Would you mind putting me on speaker?" David asks. "I'd like to address the situation directly." Anna complies, her thumb pressing the speaker button as David's voice fills the lounge. "This is David Kim from Governor Martinez's office. To whom am I speaking?" Karen's hands shake as she identifies herself, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is Karen Matthews, VIP lounge manager." David's tone is polite but firm. "Miss Matthews, I understand you're having some issues processing Miss Harper's travel arrangements. I want to make sure you understand that Miss Harper is scheduled to present a $4,300,000,000 0 cents clean energy proposal to a Senate committee tomorrow morning. This project will create thousands of jobs in underserved communities across the country, and any delays could have serious consequences for both the project and the communities it's designed to serve." The weight of David's words settles over the crowd like a blanket. Anna watches Karen's face as the reality of the situation sinks in. The woman she's been harassing isn't just a random passenger. She's a major player in a deal that could reshape the country's energy future. And she's done all this while surrounded by awards celebrating her supposed commitment to diversity and inclusion. Eleanor Washington steps forward, her phone still recording. "Mr. Kim, this is Federal Judge Eleanor Washington, retired. I've been documenting this entire incident, and I can confirm that Ms. Harper has been subjected to clear discriminatory treatment. The irony is particularly striking given that Ms. Matthews appears to have received multiple awards for diversity leadership and customer service excellence." The crowd murmurs with recognition of the bitter irony. Marcus continues filming, making sure to capture the awards on Karen's desk and wall. The Diversity Champion Trophy, the Inclusive Leadership Certificate, the Customer Service Excellence Award, all mocking her current behavior. Anna reaches into her briefcase and pulls out her corporate identification badge, the one that identifies her as CEO of Harper Renewable Energy Solutions. She places it on the counter with quiet dignity, her movements deliberate and calm despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. "This is who I am," she says, her voice steady but tinged with the weight of everything she's endured. "This is what you've been attacking." Karen stares at the badge, her hands trembling as she reaches for it. The corporate logo is immediately recognizable. Harper Renewable Energy Solutions has been in the news for months as one of the leading companies in the clean energy sector. The ID is unmistakably authentic, complete with security features that would be impossible to fake. I don't understand, Karen whispers, her voice cracking. You're the CEO? Anna nods, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I'm the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, she says quietly. I'm also the granddaughter of a woman who cleaned these floors for 30 years, who taught me that dignity isn't about what you wear or how much money you have. It's about how you treat other people. The crowd murmurs with recognition and sympathy, many of them now understanding the full scope of what they've witnessed. Eleanor Washington steps forward again, her phone still recording. I think everyone here needs to understand what just happened, she says, her voice carrying the authority of decades on the federal bench. This is what institutional racism looks like. This is what happens when assumptions are made based on appearance rather than character. And this is what happens when those assumptions are made by someone who has been publicly recognized for supposedly fighting against exactly this kind of discrimination. The camera pans across Karen's awards, the cruel irony now impossible to ignore. The Diversity Champion Trophy seems to mock her from her desk, while the Inclusive Leadership Certificate hangs, crookedly on the wall behind her, a testament to her hypocrisy. Anna's phone buzzes with an email notification. She glances at the screen and sees a message from her board of directors, confirming her authority to make decisions regarding the $4,300,000,000 contract. The irony isn't lost on her. While Karen was busy trying to deny her access to a lounge, Anna was carrying the power to make decisions that would affect thousands of lives and billions of dollars. David's voice cuts through the murmur of the crowd. Miss Harper, given the circumstances and the treatment you've experienced, I think it's important that you know you have the full support of the governor's office. We're prepared to launch a full investigation into the discriminatory practices at this airport. Anna takes a deep breath, her mind racing through the implications and possibilities. She thinks about her grandmother's words, about the communities waiting for the clean energy jobs, about the precedent this moment could set for others who might face similar treatment. Thank you, David, she says, her voice stronger now. I appreciate the governor's support. However, I need to make something clear. She looks directly at Karen, her eyes blazing with quiet fury. The company I represent has been considering this airport as a potential hub for our clean energy distribution network. The contract would have been worth approximately $4,300,000,000 over the next 5 years, creating hundreds of jobs right here in this city. Karen's face goes white as the implications hit her. The woman she's been harassing doesn't just have a contract worth billions. She has the power to bring those billions to their city or take them somewhere else. And all of this is happening while she's surrounded by awards that celebrate her supposed commitment to the exact opposite of what she's been doing. However, Anna continues, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion underneath, I cannot, in good conscience, recommend that my company partner with an organization that allows this kind of discriminatory treatment of its customers. Effective immediately, I'm withdrawing Harper Renewable Energy Solutions from consideration for any partnerships with this airport or its parent company. The silence that follows is deafening. Marcus, still filming, captures the moment perfectly. Karen's mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, her diversity awards mocking her from the background, the full weight of what she's done, not just to Anna, but to her entire city, beginning to sink in. Eleanor Washington addresses the crowd, her voice carrying the authority of someone who has spent decades on the federal bench. What you've witnessed here today is not an isolated incident, she says, her phone still recording. This is what happens to people of color every day in airports, hotels, restaurants, and businesses across this country. The only difference is that today the person being discriminated against happens to have the power to make it costly. And today, it happened in front of a federal judge, recorded by multiple witnesses, and perpetrated by someone who has been publicly celebrated for supposedly fighting against exactly this kind of behavior. The crowd erupts in murmurs and whispers as the magnitude of Anna's announcement ripples through the lounge. Phones buzz with incoming calls and messages. As word spreads through social media, Marcus realizes he's captured something truly historic. Not just discrimination, but discrimination committed by someone who has been publicly honored for fighting discrimination, exposed by a federal judge, and resulting in the immediate loss of a $4,300,000,000 0 cents contract. Anna's phone rings again, and she sees her assistant's number on the screen. "Excuse me," she says, stepping slightly away from the counter. "Sarah, what's the status on the alternate arrangements?" Her assistant's voice is breathless with urgency. "Anna, the story is everywhere. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, they're all running it. But here's the thing. They're not just covering the discrimination. They're covering the fact that the person who discriminated against you literally has awards for diversity leadership hanging on her wall. The irony is making this story explode even bigger than it would have otherwise." Anna closes her eyes, feeling the weight of the moment. What started as a simple attempt to catch a flight has become a national story about discrimination, hypocrisy, and the power of standing up for what's right. "Sarah, I need you to prepare a statement," she says, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. "We're going to use this moment to make sure it never happens to anyone else." Karen stands frozen behind the counter, her face a mask of horror as she begins to understand the full scope of what she's done. The woman she dismissed as unworthy has just withdrawn a $4,300,000,000 0 cents contract from her employer, a decision that will ripple through the local economy like an earthquake, and she's done it all while surrounded by awards that celebrate her supposed commitment to diversity and inclusion. Awards that now mock her from every angle. Eleanor Washington steps forward once more, her phone finally lowering. "Miss Harper, you've handled this situation with more grace than most people could have managed. Your grandmother would indeed be proud." Anna's eyes finally fill with tears at the mention of her grandmother, but they're tears of gratitude rather than pain. "Thank you," she whispers. "That means more to me than you know." Marcus, still filming from behind his computer, realizes he's captured something that will be studied in business schools and civil rights courses for years to come. The perfect storm of discrimination, hypocrisy, and justice, all unfolding in real time. The story reaches national prominence when it's picked up by major news networks. But it's not just the discrimination that captivates audiences. It's the stunning hypocrisy of a woman surrounded by diversity awards treating a black CEO with such blatant prejudice. The visual of Karen's diversity champion trophy gleaming in the background while she drops a black woman's ID on the floor becomes iconic, a symbol of how meaningless awards and certifications can be when they're not backed by genuine commitment to equality. CNN runs a segment titled "The Hypocrisy of Diversity Awards," featuring interviews with civil rights leaders who discuss how organizations often use awards and certifications as a cover for continued discriminatory practices. The segment includes the footage Marcus captured, with the awards clearly visible in the background, as Karen displays her prejudice. As Anna prepares to leave the lounge, she takes one final look at the scene. Karen sits in a chair, her head in her hands, surrounded by the awards that now mock her destroyed career and reputation. The Diversity Champion trophy seems to glare at her accusingly, while the Inclusive Leadership certificate hangs askew on the wall, a testament to her failure to live up to the values she claimed to embody. Anna walks toward the exit, her head held high despite everything she's endured. At the threshold, she turns back to address the crowd one final time. "I want to leave you with something my grandmother taught me," she says, her voice carrying clearly through the space. She used to say that dignity isn't something someone can give you or take away from you. It's something you carry inside yourself. Today, I almost forgot that lesson. I almost let someone else's prejudice make me feel less than who I am. She pauses, her eyes sweeping across the faces watching her, then settling on Karen's awards. "But I also learned something else today. Awards, certificates, and trophies are meaningless if they're not backed by genuine commitment to the values they're supposed to represent. Real diversity leadership isn't about what hangs on your wall. It's about what lives in your heart and guides your actions every single day." The crowd listens in rapt attention, many of them wiping away tears. Eleanor Washington steps forward one last time, her phone finally tucked away. "Ms. Harper," she says, her voice thick with emotion, "you've reminded us all that the fight for equality isn't just about laws and policies. It's about dignity, respect, and the fundamental human right to be treated with fairness regardless of who you are. And you've also reminded us that we must judge people by their actions, not their awards." The two women embrace, and in that moment, the crowd sees the connection between generations of activists, the passing of the torch from one fighter to the next. Anna's phone buzzes with a final message from her assistant. "Car is waiting outside. Flight crew is ready. You're going to make history tomorrow." Anna smiles, her first genuine smile since entering the lounge. "I'm ready," she says, both to her assistant and to herself. She walks through the door, her briefcase in hand, her dignity intact, her mission unchanged. Behind her, the lounge continues to buzz with activity, but the energy has shifted. What was once a space of exclusion and discrimination has become a classroom, a place where people learned about the cost of prejudice, the meaninglessness of empty awards, and the power of standing up for what's right. That is the nature of a people of rock that demands action. The aftermath unfolds with swift and decisive action. Within hours, the airport's corporate headquarters issues a public statement that goes viral for all the wrong reasons. The statement attempts to defend Karen by highlighting her Diversity Champion Award, not realizing that this makes the situation exponentially worse. Social media explodes with ridicule and outrage as people share screenshots of Karen's awards alongside the video of her discriminatory behavior. The hashtag Diversity Champion begins trending, but not in the way the airport intended. Instead, it becomes a rallying cry for people to share their own stories of experiencing discrimination from individuals or organizations that publicly claim to support diversity and inclusion. The irony becomes a powerful symbol of how performative diversity initiatives can mask continued prejudice. Marcus, the young man who captured the original footage, becomes an overnight sensation. His video, showing Karen's discriminatory behavior with her Diversity Champion trophy clearly visible in the background, is viewed millions of times. News outlets reach out to interview him, praising his quick thinking and courage in documenting the incident. "I've seen this pattern before," he tells reporters. "People who talk the loudest about diversity are sometimes the ones who practice the least of it." 6 months later, Anna stands in a field in rural Alabama, watching as the first solar panels are installed as part of the Clean Energy Project. The community surrounding the installation site is predominantly black, and many of the workers are from the local area, benefiting from the job training programs that Anna insisted be part of the contract. Eleanor Washington, who has become a friend and mentor, joins Anna at the installation site. "You know," Eleanor says, watching as the solar panels catch the morning sun, "sometimes justice comes in the most unexpected ways. Who would have thought that Karen Matthews' hypocrisy would become the catalyst for such positive change. Anna nods, her eyes bright with emotion. I think about that moment every day, she says. About how someone who claimed to champion diversity became the perfect example of why we need real change, not just empty awards and meaningless certificates. As they watch the installation continue, Anna's phone buzzes with a message from Marcus, who has since been promoted to a management position at a different airport, one that hired him specifically because of his integrity during the incident. Ms. Harper, his message reads, thought you'd want to know. Our airport just received its first major clean energy contract, and unlike some places, we earned it through our actions, not our award. Anna smiles, thinking about the ripple effects of that day in the lounge. Karen's hypocrisy had become a teaching moment for the entire nation. A reminder that true diversity and inclusion cannot be achieved through awards and certificates alone, but must be lived and practiced every single day. The story of Anna Harper and Karen Matthews becomes a case study in business schools and civil rights courses, not just for the discrimination that occurred, but for the powerful way it exposed the difference between performative diversity and genuine commitment to equality. The image of Karen's Diversity Champion trophy gleaming in the background while she displayed her prejudice becomes an iconic symbol of hypocrisy, a reminder that actions speak louder than awards. And in that field in Alabama, as the sun sets behind the solar panels that will power homes and dreams for generations to come, Anna Harper, CEO, activist, and granddaughter's granddaughter, knows that sometimes the most powerful change comes not from those who claim to champion justice, but from those who actually live it, one dignified moment at a time.